Welcome to Safe and Secure, where we discuss the problems and solutions that make up the systems integration world. Each week, we'll feature industry leaders and experts to discuss the obstacles and challenges in our industry with your host, Kevin Wren. So, let's dive in.
Hey Mo, how are you, sir? I'm so happy you joined us today.
Hey Kevin, good to join you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, always a pleasure to catch up with you and have you on Safe and Secure. If you don't mind, for those out there that don't know who you are, can you tell us just a little bit about who you are and what NASRO is?
Yeah, absolutely. I actually spent 25 years in law enforcement with the Hoover, Alabama Police Department. And the second half of that career, I spent in school-based policing, working with our school district, our local school district, and managing the SRO program, which led me into a relationship with NASRO. And I became the executive director for NASRO on February 1st, 2011. So I'm in this just over 10 years now. It's hard to believe how fast it's gone by. NASRO as an association has been around. We're in our 30th year. Hard to believe. Founded in 1991 at a period of time when I knew nothing about SROs, didn't know what SROs stood for. I was a crime scene investigator when this all started. So NASRO started with the idea of providing membership services on a nationwide level for school-based police officers, as well as training. And that's also developed into a lot of advocacy work, which is really, really important, critically important right now. We do training all over the country. Some states we don't train in very much, but we train in a lot of other states. We also do some training internationally. We've been in a lot of different countries with this SRO model and training officers how to do this assignment in other areas as well. You know, we recognize that this is the most unique assignment in law enforcement and that those officers have to be specifically trained how to do this job. So that's kind of who we are and where we are at this moment.
Absolutely. And fantastic organization. I can say that from a personal level. I may have been at your first conference as an SRO. I'd have to probably go backwards and do some math to try to figure that out. But SRO, so a school resource officer. So I'm going to make an assumption that the triad is still there, the same, that we've got three roles inside of one job, that we're law enforcement, counseling, and teaching. Is that model still the same with you guys? Yeah,
it's really, kind of to put it in even a better way, it is law enforcement as the foundation, certainly in that triad concept. But the other two sides of it are really education. We want SROs to get into the classroom to deliver a diverse curriculum and law-related education. And then the third side of that triad is informal counseling. Veteran officers come into this position with a skill set in informal counseling. They do it out on the street all the time. That's the triad model. Yeah.
Yeah. And for that triad model to work, you really have to, bring community together, bring that school community together so that the different divisions inside of the school, even a district, even understand what an SRO is, and then vice versa. Like, I'm law enforcement, now I'm going to go into the school, and trying to bridge that administration, counseling group, the school site group, and really understanding what that SRO is. I know one of my first SRO gigs, I so happened to be public safety, so we were EMTs as well. And the school nurse had called 911 for a kid having a panic attack. And I'm like, I'm here, I am 911. Like, she didn't know all the skill sets I had and vice versa, which could have been solved through just communication. So talk a little bit, if you can, about a newer SRO and what he or she should do in that school environment from a communication wise on skill sets, I guess.
Well, first of all, I think you kind of used the phrase bridging the gap, and that's a very important piece of what an SRO does. As a matter of fact, the main goal that an SRO should have is bridging the gap between law enforcement and youth. But that expands beyond just bridging the gap with youth. it also goes to administration and parents and anybody else engaged in this educational process. And I think that, when you laid out a really good example of somebody at the school not knowing your skill set, an SRO really should approach this position from a standpoint of being a teammate and being a good teammate. And sometimes that means you've got to communicate to the rest of the staff what your skill set is, what you can do, what you're there to do, and what you're there not to do, right? Things like school discipline. We don't want to see SROs involved in school discipline, but you're also not there to arrest everybody they want arrested either. And that's not going to happen either, right? So, if you've got a skill set beyond law enforcement, or if it's even part of your law enforcement job and being an EMT, for instance, that's something that really is on the SRO to communicate to the staff. And a great way to do that is if there is a school safety team already in place, become a member of that team. Not like a bull in a china shop, but work your way into becoming a member of that team. If there's not a team in place, then it might be a really good place for the SRO to take it upon themselves to help develop that team.
Absolutely. I think law enforcement obviously is adapting and always evolving. I think the more that we can look at, customer service and law enforcement has to go hand in hand in education, right? I mean, I personally would tell my school administration, like, yes, I have a sergeant, I have a lieutenant, I have a chief. They pay my paycheck. I have to abide by them. They are my boss.
Yeah.
But you're also my boss. I'm here to support what you are doing and to help improve this climate. So having those communications open is definitely important. All right. So Mo, we talked about, I'm a law enforcement officer in the school. How do I bridge the gap with the counseling or with the teaching side of things? How do I break into those worlds to help out? And in South Carolina, where I was from, we had a program called Street Law, which was pretty easy to get into those classrooms and do some teaching. And then on the other side in my career, I had cutters and mental health kids that fortunately for me, I had one situation where the kid was autistic, very friendly, very loving child. Huge, like 6'4", 300 pounds, huge kid, great kid. I messed up one day and snuck up from behind, and lucky for me, his sister screamed stop, because if you scare him or startle him, he just starts swinging and fighting, and it could have been really ugly. So can you talk a little bit about how do you get the information from counseling on certain students, and how do you break that into the classroom, I guess?
Everything you're asking about all flows into one word: relationships. And that's, you can't, as an SRO, just walk the halls with the intent of keeping the peace. You can't just be macro focused just on the security of the building. It has to start with relationships. And, part of that can start by, again, the relationship with the principal and encouraging them to let you introduce yourself as an SRO at the first faculty meeting of the year, and take just 5 minutes to talk about what your capabilities are, and talk about, the law-related education information you can bring into the classroom environment. Talk about, how you can approach things from an informal counseling standpoint and really partner with those other teammates in the building, whether it's school counselors, mental health specialists, whoever it is. The more that relationship grows, the more confident people become in sharing appropriate information with you, right? There are certainly things that are protected by HIPAA and other laws, things that we really, even if we wanted to know about, we're not supposed to, we really can't. But there are some things, just by the sheer nature of developing relationships and getting to know students, that you're going to gain knowledge of, right? Just by being in that environment. So be present, I think, is the best way I know to say that, and be understanding and be willing to learn about what's going on in that environment. Just like, even though that could have been a bad situation, you stopped when the person said to stop, and we're willing to learn what it is that's going on here. I remember the first student that I ever met that probably was truly an autistic savant. And I needed some guidance actually from his sister. I got a lot of the guidance from his sister about how to approach him and how to work with him and how to be his friend. And, gosh, that was 20 years ago, and we're still friends to this day. So it really is incumbent on the SRO to have this attitude of always being present and being about building relationships.
Absolutely. And learning to understanding roles and relationships. It's funny you talk about your friends still 20 years later. My SRO in the 90s was in my wedding. We are still in contact. So I definitely appreciate the relationships that are built by SROs. And the learning and understanding aspect, I don't want to go down the road of defund the police and remove all the cops from the schools. I really think a lot of that movement is lack of understanding and knowing what a school resource officer is. So can you talk a little bit about what are the educational opportunities out there that NASRO provides for not only the road officer that wants to become an SRO, but also school administration, the community, et cetera?
Well, you give me an opportunity to first really talk about our national conference. We had 29 national conferences in a row in person until last year, right? And so we had to make that shift to virtual, and I pushed back against it until I just couldn't push back anymore. And so we had to transition into a virtual conference last year. We're really pleased to be returning to an in-person conference this coming July in Orlando, Florida. And it'll be our 31st annual conference. Our theme for this year just got announced yesterday. It's serving together to protect all. And we're really excited about that theme. I think it says it all about who we are. But that is a conference that I would love to see one day that there was an equal number of SROs and educators there, right? We usually have about 15% of our attendants are educators, school administrators, counselors, that sort of thing. And it really is a great opportunity for educators and SROs to really interact in a positive way with one another and network. And again, we're really excited to return to an in-person version of that this coming summer. A variety of topics will be addressed in that conference, which include mental health. We're really going to focus on mental health in this conference, not just students, not just educators, but the SROs as well. That whole self-care piece is really, really important. And we'll also have a focus on threat assessment. That's become quite a big issue. And certainly we'll have our normal session with Dr. Bernie James on school law update. But beyond the national conference, we run a number of training programs. Probably the core program we have is our basic SRO course, designed to prepare the veteran officer to take on this unique assignment and really understand better how to work with students. We have an advanced course for SROs, a management course for those that are supervising SROs. We have a course called Adolescent Mental Health Training for SROs and educators. That's a 1.5 day workshop that has really, really been effective over the last couple of years. And I think has really helped to show SROs the way in how to de-escalate some of those situations. And we really need folks in this position that really understand de-escalation, and we want to give them all the tools possible to help with that.
Absolutely. You have to have a well-vetted, you have to have a well-trained SRO, and you have to have a holistic safety security program with an SRO unit. I think that some of the SRO units out there, or maybe some of the defund things, come from that knowledge, that understanding, or we're super focused on the security and we're not addressing the other aspects of a school resource officer, because there is a vast difference between security and school resource officer. Yep. I love what NASRO does. I love the information you guys push out. Like I said, I've been to a couple of different national conferences as an SRO. Love the fact that I'm now able to go and attend as a vendor to help you guys. And I will put this out there as well. If there is any school administrator that is anti-school resource officer or a community member that does not understand the SRO program, if you attend the NASRO conference, I personally, not A3, I personally will pay your registration to attend that conference. So Mo, how can we get more information to contact you or NASRO for your resources?
Well, the best way is our website, nasro.org, nasro.org. You can also call our toll-free number, 888-316-2776. And we have a wonderful lady by the name of Pam who will answer the phone and provide any assistance that you need and get you to the right place. So those are the best two ways.
Perfect. And I'll end with this, Mo. Everybody on these episodes, I think they figured out by now, I am a true school security geek. People have professional athletes and singers and actresses that they are in love with. I am a school security geek. I can remember watching you walk down the hall at one of my first NASRO conferences with your entourage and thinking, I want to know that guy. And I appreciate everything you have done to make SROs professional, to move the ball forward for NASRO. And it's an honor to get to know you, sir.
Well, I appreciate it. I'm not sure if it was an entourage or if it was just people bugging me for things that I was trying to get away from me.
I like entourage better. So.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us for this week's episode of Safe and Secure. For show notes, visit a3communications.com. Thank you again for watching, and don't forget to stay safe and secure. We'll see you next time.